Thank you, Chuck. Good morning. Good morning, New Hampshire. Good morning, Maine. WTSN AM and FM right up into Portland, Seacoast, New Hampshire, Dover, Rochester, Portsmouth, Hampton, and Rye. Good morning everywhere else. 107.7 FM, WTPL, AM and FM corridor, Manchester, Concord, the Lakes region. We have you blanketed, WEMJ, WASR, everywhere else. Hey, Google, hey, Alexa, play the Pulse of an H. As we get going, J-Dog, good Tuesday morning to you, 2 days into April, tracking that nor'easter, which looks like gets underway a little bit later tomorrow, not later, but it looked like it was going to be here by the morning, but during the day tomorrow, it's going to develop, and then it will go through tomorrow night into Thursday, and then starts to taper off Thursday night into Friday. So it's a good little storm system, some gusty winds. You heard about the possibility of power outages. It could be a foot of snow, upwards of a foot of snow in the North Country where you want it this time of year for any of the late season riders, boarders, and skiers. Probably lower, not probably, lower amounts in the coast and southern tiers. So we'll have more for you on Mother Nature in the next, pretty much tomorrow into Thursday now. Also, got a packed show for you. Could RFK Jr. be on the ballot here in New Hampshire? His campaign says yes in other states. We'll come back to that. Donald Trump had an interesting line. Good segue for our first expert and contributor, our own White House correspondent, John Decker, talking about some of these civil cases and gag orders. Good line by Trump I just saw on CNN. Trump on the judges, quote, they can talk about me, but I can't talk about them? Question mark. John Decker, our own White House correspondent. Civil fraud bond payment, I guess, being secured. A lot of other stuff going on, John. Good morning. And of course, classified documents still pending. I mean, it's just it's mind-boggling stuff. I mean, it's just you can't. If you had sort of stepped away and went away from Earth for a few years and came back to the United States, and you look at this political cycle, just a lot of this stuff you couldn't make up. All right. Our own White House correspondent, John Decker, on a Tuesday. Thank you, John. Couple, it's interesting. Some states are having their primary today, but doesn't matter. Really doesn't matter. Biden and Trump have wrapped up their respective nominations. But this is interesting as you hear the stage set. And I don't want to get into, Trump's line about whether he's talking about judges or other people, but the gag orders, the cases, the bonds, all the legal stuff. You just heard John Decker saying that in the next month or two, Trump's in the courtroom a lot, defending himself from these cases. Joe Biden will hit the campaign trail. And then that's another paradigm, right? Say what you want about Trump, whether him talking about the judges, they can talk about me, but I can't talk about them. So, whether he can talk about the judges or not, or the gag orders, but then you got Joe Biden out there. I was just going back. I almost pulled a Biden talking about Lincoln Riley versus Lakin. Commuted by train over the Baltimore Bridge. There's no train over that bridge. It got struck by the cargo tanker or ship or vessel. I didn't do that when he's talking about the keeping the proclamation for Transgender Visibility Day on Easter. I didn't do that. So it's just in the border hypocrisy, left and right. And this is the narrative. But the one thing that a lot of people are not paying attention to, and I kind of am, Robert F. K. This is some interactive politics, whatever that is, but one of these like, I don't know, could be Politico, but this one's called Interactive Politics. RFK Jr., Robert F. Kennedy Jr., is qualified for the ballot for the presidential election in North Carolina, and his campaign says he has qualified for the ballot in. Are you ready? North Carolina. This is not the final four, by the way, men's and women. This is not the final four. Nevada, Utah, New Hampshire, and Hawaii. So RFK Jr. is on the ballot in New Hampshire, and a lot of people will say, "Oh, so what?" And I keep saying this because you have such a dissatisfied, not the Trump voters aren't dissatisfied. They're voting for Trump. A lot of the Biden base is all over the map. I don't think they're too enthused. No one breaks down how solid the support for Joe Biden is. Let me tell you here and now. The best thing Biden has going for him is the Democrats that don't want him to be the nominee or Vice President Harris will rally around him every time they hear stories like coming out of Florida with a new shorter term abortion window. Anything on abortion is about the only thing I see where his base is solid. That's about it. You talk about the border, you talk about the economy, you talk about his age, anything else that splinters. Nothing splinters with Trump, no matter what happens, no matter what case is heard, doesn't matter what civil fraud, doesn't matter the story. Trump's got his base. So when you see stories like RFK Jr. is going to be on the ballot in New Hampshire and independent voters are the largest voting bloc, you're telling me they're doing the happy dance if they're leaning left looking at Biden? I don't think so. And they may not be fired up about Trump, but they may like the economy. They might think might be better for the economy, better with two wars going on in the world, certainly uncertainty in Ukraine, in the Middle East, and maybe a lot better on the border in terms of stopping this unchecked flow of migrants and undocumented or illegals flowing across. So those issues Trump's got. He trumps Biden a little bit or a lot. But then you got RFK Jr. and it's a wild card. So this thing is, and by the way, has anyone heard from No Labels? It's like a missing persons report. Maybe they're going to have like one of those alerts on the highway. Any candidates for No Labels? Some commentary, 603-228-2080. We'll come back. We'll tell you about some of the other news, talking the latest on that storm system, nor'easter moving in tomorrow into really pretty much mostly all day Thursday into Thursday night. Back on the Pulse of an H in a moment. A reminder, J-Dog, you can be the boss of this, or you're the boss. Not, I'm just saying. Let's do, let's do, I'm just trying to feel it. What do you think? 10:35 for the next pair of those Luke Bryan tickets? All right. And so it's 10:35, not now. 603-228-2080. We'll tell you what number, call, or a pair of tickets to Luke Bryan before for that third show J Dog talks about or is telling us about. They go on sale this Friday. Get them from us now. And it'll be a great show. Reminder, May 15th. Lock in that date on your calendar, please. We go 12 hours commercial free for our veterans. My 10th annual Make 12 Hours Count for Veterans Count. Vetscount.org. 10 hours, May 15th for our veterans. 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. And great presenting sponsors, including FedPoint, Service Credit Union, Northeast Delta Dental, and many others. I wanted to come back to I had a conversation with a business leader this morning on my way in. When I say a business leader, a CEO of a company who has to juggle reality, unlike so many politicians in Washington, people that run businesses have to deal in reality, not in this. Unbelievable, isn't it? Don't you love it, by the way, in politics? Every time we talk about getting a business person in politics, the organ of politics, the body of politics rejects it if you're not a politician. I mean, can I ask you one question? Say what you want about the choices in November, Biden and Trump. Do you think Joe Biden's ever created a private sector job in his life? Think about that. I mean, if you look at, say all you want about Trump, but you look at other levels, Biden's political career, how many years? Do yourself a favor. Just Google that. He's been he basically, if you look at his entire career, Joe Biden, he's been a member of he's obviously a Democrat. Sir, he was obviously 47th president for 2 terms under President Barack Obama. He represented Delaware in the United States Senate from 1973. 73. Go back. 1973. Anyway, you look at the years and how many years he's been in politics. Politics from Pennsylvania originally. Delaware is his home. He's been involved in politics, and that's fine. I mean, he's been a very effective. Say what you want to about Joe Biden. He's a very effective politician. And the other thing people don't know is he ran for president a few times, and not very gracefully. But he got in there. You got to give him credit, and he's president, and he's running again. But in terms of private sector jobs, I was talking to a business owner this morning, trying to get some visibility on the economy. And it's really hard to get a read because, right now we're in this period of springtime. The Fed is probably going to lower the interest rate a quarter of a point is what we hear in June. And then subsequently each quarter very slowly, depending on inflation. And most families still feel that after a couple of weeks every month, they're out of money. They can't afford everything. That's just the way it is. What did Rory O'Neill yesterday on our show? He'll be on again at 11. Our Rory O'Neill, NBC News Radio national correspondent, talk about housing markets and minimum or average down payments in markets. What did he say in New Hampshire? It was like $130,000. Certainly Rockingham County, Portsmouth, even 10% down. It's over $100,000. And a lot of people getting it. I mean, it used to be a down payment or putting the money down once you make an offer on the house. The old school was you go see a house you like, you call the realtor, you tell the realtor, we want to make an offer. The buyer accepts the offer contingent on whatever, and usually gave a $1,500 check, wrote a $1,500 check to the realtor to hold as sort of, to hold the deal. And then you had closing. And before closing, if you had any kind of a mortgage, whether it was 10, sometimes 20, but 10% down on a $500,000 home is 50 grand. 10% down on $1 million home is, you're going to be over 100 grand, 100,000 or more. So the economy is certainly up in the air and no one knows where it's going to be. And so we look at this picture of the election coming up. Biden He's got a record now. That's something that none of these pundits point out. Now, one of these experts will point out in the Biden-Trump rematch, which is something, as you heard me say repeatedly, I think that's what the national media wanted. Biden-Trump round 2. Here we go, round 2. They got it. Biden has a record. Trump has a distant record from his first term, but he's Trump, so he's known. Biden has a record on the economy. So the one question that no one's going to want asked in this election cycle, if these two even debate, which is sad, is are you better off now than you were 4 years ago? That will be a question asked. And of course, Trump will say, are you better off now than when I was president, when the price of gas was X, when we had more energy production and independence, the economy, there was no inflation to speak of, the border wasn't as much of a crisis. Are you better off today? We didn't have 2 wars in the world. Are you better off today than 4 years ago? Tough question to answer if you're Joe Biden. He's going to tell you how he saved the world coming out of COVID, saved the world, stimulus package, was dealt with record inflation. Okay, let's stop there. Where we have a storm coming to our region, Mother Nature-wise, in the next 24, 36 hours. So starting tomorrow into Thursday, we have a nor'easter. That's coming from somewhere, Mother Nature. Where did record inflation come from? Because it didn't just come out of thin air. I don't know if you knew that. Inflation that high, the worst in 50 years, the highest in 50 years, it came from somewhere. Record federal stimulus and spending. Too many dollars chasing too few goods. Do you know that most of the political buffoons, I'm sorry to say that, but they are sometimes in Washington, politicians couldn't even tell you the definition, the classic definition of inflation? They couldn't even tell you. If you ask a member of Congress or Senate or the president, can you please in handful of words describe inflation? Oh, that's when things cost a lot. No, what's the definition? What sort of causes inflation? They couldn't answer the question. I mean, heck, they don't even read the bills they vote on. They don't know what's in there. They're spending money like, there's no tomorrow. They go from looming government shutdown to looming government shutdown, both sides. They don't cut any federal spending, and they don't even know how to define inflation. Too many dollars chasing too few goods. Well, how did that happen? The 3 years, if you look at the spending and the multi-trillion dollar packages the Biden administration kept throwing as stimulus against the economy with the false presumption that it needed it, including the so-called Inflation Reduction Act. You can't throw that many trillions of dollars at the economy and expect all the goods to catch up. People were living like there was no tomorrow. Not to mention the COVID stimulus they stole. I'd like to know, how that isn't it amazing how that story's gone away. Here's one for you on a random Tuesday. We'll update you on that storm system in a moment coming back. A couple stories that amazingly vanished. Who was that magician? Was it David Copperfield? He could make things like disappear in front of you. David Copperfield magic. A couple stories that amazingly disappeared in the last couple of years. Who leaked the Roe v. Wade memo? That's amazing, isn't it? Well, we can't find out who leaked it. We can't. Are you kidding me? You can't find out who leaked that? Another one is how many people, the so-called PPP loans for COVID, payroll protection, all those loans where your local banks, what a scam. Hey, J-Dog, your business has been hurt by COVID, hasn't it? Wink, wink, wink. And J-Dog says, no, I just laid off a few employees. I'm being hypothetical if J-Dog had like a restaurant. They shut me down. I laid off a few employees, but they were able to go on unemployment under New Hampshire, and I was able to survive, so I didn't take the loan. I felt funny taking that $800,000 loan. Oh, no, J-Dog, wink, wink, wink. Take it. It's so easy. You can do it online. You can just come in and fill this out and just say, this is what I estimate my losses to be, and you got $800,000. Interest rates were 2.9%, and they're pumping trillions of dollars in the economy. That's where the hell inflation came from, folks. It didn't just come out of thin air. Inflation came from the politicians in Washington. They created the worst inflation in 50 years. And then the Fed doesn't know what the hell to do about it. So the only tool in their toolkit is to raise interest rates. So they take them from 2.9 or 3 up to almost 8 before you knew it. shut down the real estate, shut down the ability to buy, help the affordable housing crisis get worse so people couldn't afford. I mean, people, there's a big difference. Just do your UVM math. If you're going to borrow $400,000 at 3%, well, you as a couple can afford that mortgage payment plus property taxes escrowed in, whatever. You borrow 4% at 400,000, I'm sorry, at almost 8%, well, you're in the mid threes. You go from 1,200, 1,400 a month for a mortgage payment, which is so much lower than a rent. All of a sudden, you're close to 4 grand a month, and a lot of couples can't afford that with everything else. Politicians created the fire of inflation. Too many dollars chasing too few goods. Over stimulus, trillion dollars. Every time you turn around, they're passing a 1.7 trillion dollar spending bill, and then the PPP program. That's the story that David Copperfield made go away. Has anyone heard about how many billions of dollars were basically stolen by people? When you give free stuff away, you're going to have human greed. When you give free stuff away, sorry, you're going to have human greed. I don't care if it's free cell phones, free candy on Easter, PPP loans. Now, there were some businesses that had every right to take them. And I don't want to use names in New Hampshire, but how about some law firms that actually made more money during COVID than not? Look at how much they got. Colleges, what a scam. Colleges, they line their pockets, right? Colleges, the kiddies went home with all the remote learning crap and they were still paying tuition. So the college overhead was lower and they got all this federal subsidy. Everyone was dancing in the money. Everyone was taking the PP. Everyone was taking the stimulus. And then you had low interest rates. And you tell me what the hell is going to happen in the economy. That's where inflation came from. And not one of these people has had the common decency or respect to explain it to us, what I just did, those 3 or 4 minutes. That's where inflation came from. Worst in 50 years. You know it. You felt it. You go to the grocery store, chicken, eggs, milk. You're like, what the hell is going on? I remember going grocery shopping. I'm like, are you kidding me? A loaf of bread? Are you kidding me? $7 for a loaf of bread? What the hell is going on here? It was all created out of one place, Washington, D.C. So are you better off 4 years? Are you better off today than you were 4 years ago? That's a question that probably should be asked. Hey, Google, hey, Alexa, play the Pulse of an Age. Back on Good Morning New Hampshire on this Tuesday. We're looking at a nor'easter moving in. We'll have more on that coming up. A little bit of March Madness. J-Dog on the board. At the top of the 10 o'clock, regular contributors include Alicia Preston, Xanthopoulos, Seacoast Online. Back in a moment. founders documents done. He's now working with Mark on it. He promised me to tell you in the next week or two they will be done. So I guess that's good. Reminder at 10:35 this morning, get to the our 6-hour phone line, 603-228-2080. We'll tell you what number caller. We'll have another pair of tickets for you to go to Luke Bryant, the show, before tickets go on sale this Friday. That will be this morning around 10:35. You know, I'd said earlier, tell you about the Mother Nature and this weather pattern moving in here. You know, some snow and rain starting tomorrow. Windy, by the way, gusty winds, especially on the coast. But pretty much, it's a good nor'easter. And I typically define nor'easters. You know, it's going to hit the coast with a lot of wind, snow, and rain. But more snow. This is a perfect one for you this time of year because more snow is going to be where they want it and need it, and you don't, and maybe we don't in the North Country. So upwards of a foot of snow up into the mountains and less lower amounts, southern tier and coast, but some wind gusts. So we could have and probably will have, not that I want this to happen, probably will have some scattered power outages with the major utility providers like Eversource, Unitil, New Hampshire Electric Co-op, Liberty, because of the branches and the heavy snow and the winds coming down on lines. As much as they try and cut trees away from those lines, they can't get them all. And you know that from just a few weeks ago. That's more like a tomorrow into Thursday now. So we'll see when that gets going tomorrow. Keep you posted. And obviously, Mike Pomp early in the morning information center. You're going to get all with Mr. Mike early in the morning. As we get going this morning, a couple of the stories I noticed just during the break. It's almost like CNN says this with glee, doing the happy dance and joy. In addition to Trump having to pay this $152 billion, meeting that civil bond payment. Remember, they lowered it. So this has nothing to do with Powerball, by the way. He got some insurance company from out west to kind of underwrite the bond, but Trump came up with the money to pay this New York City civil fraud bond. And that, by the way, was a political witch hunt, admittedly by the New York Attorney General. No crime committed. Let's go after him this way with this judge. No jury who will find him guilty before the trial even started and take as much money from him as we can and hurt him as badly as we can. And they did it with glee and joy. But I watched CNN this morning, just a moment ago. On the top of that story, Trump met the $152 million civil bond amount that was due, I think, by Thursday. So Trump met that today, Tuesday. The next story is, you ready? I'm just saying, with all that's going on in the world, including Gaza in the Middle East, everything. Trump's Truth social media stock, we could see another plunge today. So Trump's social media stock, trading under DJT on NASDAQ, could plunge again today. After yesterday, it was shown how much, I think they lost, what was it, $58 million last year in operating, profit or loss. So Trump's social media, the Truth social media stock, could plunge again today, almost like they can't wait to watch that plunge. And it just underscores what I said about CNN, not to pick on them, but it's easy to do that. And you wonder why the viewership is just going into the tank or down the toilet. I don't think they financially, fiscally, physically, or any otherwise could survive without Trump in their newscast. Every single minute is Trump. There's a story about Trump. They couldn't survive without him. What are they going to do at some point down the road? At some point, everything changes. They can't survive. I don't think they could survive without Trump. And I'm not being flippant when I see it. Just watch it yourself and see how many times the Trump name is mentioned. It is kind of remarkable, actually. So we'll have more on that. As we get going this morning as well, some of our regular contributors, just some of the other stories. By the way, J-Dog, we did have some fun stuff on the March Madness side with the women, and that's a big win for Iowa and the superstar there. And there's a couple schools. Am I right, J-Dog? Just tell me if I'm right or wrong. I'm noticing a couple schools are sending their men's and women's team, by the way. You notice I men's and women's team, by the way, both to the Final Four. Am I right on a couple colleges? Has that happened before? Really? What speaking of baseball, when is the Red Sox scheduled home opener? That's better than tomorrow or Thursday. Yeah, it would. I know, I'm just saying, yeah. Okay. And Bruins, I think, go again tonight, right? Against the Predators, Nashville. Yeah. I think it's a national game because it's a little bit later. Hey, I was just talking about like David Copperfield. By the way, Renee Palmer's favorite magician um, of the Seacoast. But the nationally, David Copperfield, incredible, talented magician. His big thing was he could make things like an illusionist, make things disappear on stage, kind of what we need in Washington. And I was talking about the stories that went away, like nothing to see here. Just don't even, just move on. Nothing to see here. Just move on. A couple of the stories that moved on were those PPP loans and how many people had no business taking. Don't worry, just move on. Nothing to see. Keep moving. Just keep moving. Don't stop. Don't stop on the parade route. A couple other stories. But do you remember the other one when people, when they just want to get you with more doom and gloom, kind of keep you in bed all day, keep you down, tamp you down, even though no one should be able to set your own thermostat, but you kind of beat you down with the news. Does anyone remember a couple years ago when they were trying to scare us at all? Take your vax, get boosted. Don't do this. Go out with this. Wear this. Drive around in the car by yourself with a mask on. I mean, all the scare tactics. Stay at home, remote learning. Murder hornets. Murder hornets. We're going to come in, scare people with murder hornets. There's a lot of stuff going on with the solar eclipse on Monday, by the way. Oh my goodness. Like, it's kind of like the end of the world's coming Monday, right? With this solar eclipse. Murder hornets. Murder hornets were going to take us, like no tomorrow. So the murder hornets scared us. Now I'm reading a story, and I don't know who's putting this out. Um, we're going to see trillions of noisy flying insects to swarm the U.S. for the first time in 221 years. So everyone's going to read into this one. These two groups of noisy flying insects. So I guess the good news, being an optimist, is they're not murder hornets. So we have that going for us. The good news is they're not murder hornets. The bad news is we're going to have a lot. I don't know if they're called, is it cicada? Is that what they're called, J Dog? Flying insects, little bugs. We're going to have a lot of, when J Dog's out walking, he's got a lot of noisy flying bugs. That's the next thing to kind of give us a scare. I remember, I remember when I was blessed, and I have been beyond my worth, thank goodness, but blessed when I was, a number of years ago as a civilian, got to go to the U.S. Army War College National Security Seminar in Carlisle, Pennsylvania, at the barracks in the college, the campus. What a great experience. But I remember asking a retiring 3-star Army general, I think it was Abrams, in one of the breakout sessions. And I said, General, the old question you want to ask a general who's commanding so many, I still had an active command. He was a guest speaker. What do you worry about? I remember asking Rick Kaiser of the SEAL teams, Rick, what kind of keeps you up at night? What do you worry about? Not the flying insects, not the murder hornets. What do you worry about, General? And I remember he said, well, two things and two things only. He just happened to come back from the Arctic Circle where he was up there with Canadians looking at what China's doing on our rooftop. No one talks about that. You won't see that on 60 Minutes, right? It doesn't fit a narrative. It'll be about Trump's civil bond, but it won't be on the Arctic Circle. He said, China keeps me, China and the Arctic Circle, what they're doing. So that's what makes me a little nervous. The stuff we don't know, the adversaries we have, and what they'll do next. I mean, will Putin flirt with touching that line with Poland anymore and test NATO's resolve? Will China move against Taiwan? These are the big things. These are the real things that could change everything in a New York second. Everyone worries about their 401k and their financial plans and their entitlements, right? These things can change the landscape real quick. Hey, on another note, I just have to say this because last night I was watching, big surprise, right? I was watching I think it was, because there's no Bruins on. You know those nights where you wanna just take your mind off? I'm a Pierce Bronson. I think he's a cool guy, good actor. I think it was called The Foreigner. It's an older movie. Pierce plays like this former IRA official. He's balancing the peace agreement for 19 to 20 years between the Irish and the British authorities, and there's a rogue IRA element that sets off some bombs in London, and then the foreigner is this father who loses his daughter, and then he kind of kicks butt. But the whole point was, I just love when the good guys are taking out the bad guys. That's what kind of makes me tick. But I was afterwards on Netflix. I just shared this because I texted it to someone who loves this kind of thing. I watched his documentary on, of all things, I have no idea why. Katharine Hepburn, the late actress, who she liked to be referred to as Kate. If you remember Golden Pond, on Golden Pond, she kind of plays herself in that, her own life. So did Henry Fonda, by the way. It was just amazing how prophetic that movie was on Golden Pond here in New Hampshire. But her documentary about her life, oh my goodness. I think she lived to be 96 or 94 years old. Loved her home in Connecticut. But what a driven, talented business person at a time when women weren't that in Hollywood. And she just changed so much, but she just kept going, persevering, knock down, get up, tough family life, believe it or not. Lost a brother to suicide. The parents actually said, let's not talk about this. Her best friend, her brother, she goes into his bedroom and she had to cut him down. He hung himself in his bedroom. And the father, who was a doctor, I guess he had suicide in the family. Just say, okay, say it's because we went to the circus a few days ago and he was watching how they were doing the tightrope stuff and it was an accident. We don't with his that doesn't happen in our family. So she grew up as a tough. But what you want to you want to watch a documentary on toughness, facing adversity, because I was talking earlier about the murder hornets and all the stuff that they scare us with. Watch that documentary on Katharine Hepburn. Unbelievable perseverance, driven, and she paid a price for it. I think, admittedly, in the end. Married only once, couple legendary affairs, but no children. And she said in the end that, it was all about her, but tough cookie. All right, some commentary 603-228-2080. J Dog will tell you about a couple of the other notes happening. 10:35, another pair of tickets for Luke Bryan. Not yet, 10:35. So 603-228-2080. Hey, Alexa, hey, Google, play the Pulse of an Age. Back in a few. Thank you, J Dog. Under the category of some good news that you never hear about. By the way, I'll come back to that story of the flying trillions of noisy insects are set to swarm the U.S. Only the U.S. probably, not Canada. I'm kidding. For the first time in 220 years. It's remarkable, right? I mean, here we go again. The last time the U.S. saw something like this, there's different you can articles, the Sun, trillions of bugs to swarm once per 221 years, mating frenzy in weeks. It hasn't happened since the founding fathers. So trillions of these cicadas are set to invade the United States for the first time in 221 years. So we have a solar eclipse, right, on Monday, right, J-Dog, the 8th? Well, you know what I mean. Visible to the whoever's in the path, visible from the, so we got the eclipse. They got the eclipse first time. And how many years, J-Dog, is the eclipse? I don't know. What are they saying? Right. So that's why some of these Airbnb paths of like Ohio or different, what is it? What I hear? Texas is even northern New Hampshire. So first time it's almost like the end of the world. Well, now trillions of these flying insects. We haven't seen this in 221 years. Billions and even trillions of these bugs are going to emerge at the same time across 17 states. So let's see. I don't know what states they are. So once they hatch, they feed off root sap underground until it's time to mate. Mating season has been described as a noisy and chaotic display that could happen for weeks. An event like this hasn't occurred since 1803 when Thomas Jefferson was president. It's not expected to happen again until like 2244. The co-emergence of the two types of cycles is rare. So here we go. And I guess the good news is I don't think we're in danger, although I'm sure I don't know if they're gonna say someone's behind it. I don't know if these insects will be spying for China, which isn't kind of funny because they spy any way they can, obviously, including some hot air balloons. But anyway, the females can lay eggs and a new batch of the bugs will appear the next morning. For the most part, um, except for a small woodland near Springfield, Illinois, they might emerge at the same time. So 17 states. So here we go. I'm finally get the map. A map from the U.S. Forest Service shows active sort of mating grounds in the U.S. where they will likely emerge. So let's look at the map. Here we go. Let's see where we are. Looking up in the Northeast here hey, we might be off the hook, J-Dog. I don't see a lot of mating flying bug activity up here. But here we go. We haven't seen this since Thomas Jefferson. So that's the next thing to be terrified about are these flying mating bugs. Now, the good news, got a little bit of time to prepare. So trades of these bugs, it's a once per 221 year mating frenzy. So when we have nothing else to worry about, there you go. Flying noisy bugs mating. Coming your way maybe to 17 states by the trillions. Someone will figure out an angle to make money on this, I'm sure. Maybe the CDC. Hey, coming up, Alicia Preston's Anthopoulos, Seacoast Online, 10:35, a chance to win another pair of those Luke Bryant concert tickets. Third show being set. They don't even go on sale till Friday, so 603-228. Not now, please. 603-228-2080. 10:35 will tell you what caller and open up our 6 hour lines. And then a reminder, May 15th, it's a Wednesday, 6 a.m. to 6 p.m., my 10th annual Make 12 Hours Count for our veterans and Veterans Count, vetscount.org. So mark your calendar. We're going to have more also on the cleanup or the preparation to start beginning to rebuild that collapsed bridge in Baltimore. Amazing at how quickly this could actually happen. Say what you want about our country, because a lot of the college professors and Ivy League campuses want to tell you how damn bad we are. We've seen it after the 9/11 attacks. This country knows how to rebuild. This bridge collapse, I thought, because I'm not a structural engineer type thinker, All hands on deck. I think this thing's going to be up and at 'em again quicker than we know, and I would have thought of it in a long time. Keep in mind, Baltimore is the 4th busiest port, so a lot of this cargo traffic has to be rerouted, shipping lanes, service lanes, as well as the cleanup, right? As well as the cleanup. Also coming up, Aaron Rial, NBC News Radio national correspondent. We'll get some great financial expertise from Joe Guyton and the Guyton Group. Of course, they were over at Pease International Trade Port in Portsmouth. Hey, Google. Hey, Alexa. Play the pulse of an age. We'll have a lot more coming up for you on this Tuesday. But again, all eyes, or a lot of eyes on tomorrow. Winter storm on the way, a nor'easter, windy, rainy snow mix. Could be upwards of a foot of snow in the North Country, exactly where you want it and need it. Lower amounts, lesser amounts as you come south and on the coast. But windy gust pretty much into Thursday, tapering down on Thursday night, the worst of it. So it's kind of a tomorrow, second half of the day. It feels like afternoon, evening, all the way into Thursday night. So we'll have that for you. Keep you posted. Hey, Google. Hey, Alexa, play the pulse of an age. J-Dog on the boards. The illustrious one, Jack Heath, 10:35. A pair of those Luke Bryan tickets. Back in a moment.